And welcome to the Krueg Show on a Sunday, Labor Day weekend. Larry Krueger, Ryan Smith with you. Talking a little football tonight with Dieter Kurtenbach, who's a phenomenal guest. And we'll talk a little bit about the Bears and the 49ers. That's right. A week from today, September 11th, the season gets rolling. Bears and Niners go from Soldier Field. But first, let's tend to a little business. The Krueg Show brought to you by MyBookie.com. Winning season has officially returned. And with the NFL preseason in the rearview mirror and the regular season on the verge of being live across the nation, there are plenty of opportunities to win at MyBookie.com. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or a first-timer, MyBookie.com gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus up to $1,000. Right, this is a great deal. To claim your bonus, sign up and use that promo code Larry K on your first deposit, and you'll initially double your money with MyBookie.com. It's really simple. $250 deposit puts $500 in your account, and you can use your funds to bet on as many individual games, contests, or props as you want. Bet on team win totals, predict the Super Bowl winner, use the MyBookie.com prop builder to give yourself the edge that you need to, as they say, secure the bag. That's right. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.com, and make sure you type in that promo code Larry K so they will double your money. You don't type in Larry K, you don't get double the money. So if you type in Larry K in the promo code, whatever you put down, they are going to double it, and away you go. So once again, bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.com. All right, and before we welcome in Dieter, let's also welcome in our other commercial sponsors who sponsor the Krueg Show. Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use Telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com, often imitated, never equaled. And they are a proud sponsor of the Krueg.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York. from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krueg Show. Larry Kruger, Ryan Smith with you. And our guest today is Dieter Kurtenbach, who has covered the 49ers and covered Bay Area sports for an awful long time for a number of different outlets, both electronic and in print. And he's with us on the Krueg Show to preview Week 1 in the NFL. Niners and Bears go at Soldier Field. Justin Fields, Trey Lance, two of the great young quarterback prospects in the NFL, lock horns in Week 1. And Dieter's here to break it all down. Dieter, good to see you, my man. How are you?
I'm great. Really excited to be talking Week 1 of the NFL season this weekend. It couldn't come soon enough, man. This is great.
Well, let's just get right into, the Trey Lance, Justin Fields angle on this thing, because I think this is really interesting. I mean, Trey Lance is 22 years old, 125 days on opening day. It's going to make him the youngest Niners starting quarterback in a season opener since they moved to the NFL in 1950. He's 1 day younger than what Alex Smith was in 2006 when he started. What do you expect to see from Trey Lance at Soldier?
A lot of running. I think that's the one thing that we're going to see early and often. Now, whether that's by design or whether that's just him running for his life, to be determined. But I do think that he's going to, as we saw in the game against Arizona last year, his first NFL start, I think he's going to keep the ball on the ground. That's what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. That is the 49ers offense. I think that they're going to have a bunch of different wrinkles in this run game. And I'm really excited to see how far they want to push that early. The Niners have a fairly easy schedule. It won't look so easy if they lose Week 1, right? But they get Chicago, they get Seattle in the first 2 weeks. This is a great opportunity for Kyle Shanahan to ease his young quarterback in. And I think that Trey Lance's natural decision-making skills leads him to tuck and run. We saw that time and time again when he was at North Dakota State. I say time and time again as if he played a lot of football there. When he was at North Dakota State, he ran it a lot. I think that that's his natural inclination. I think we're going to see the 49ers keep it on the ground and really get into the heavy play action stuff, the third down throws, not try to put it in the air too much too early. Let the Bears do that. Let the young quarterback for Chicago, Justin Fields, play that game. The 49ers are going to keep it on the ground. They're going to keep it behind an offensive line that can run block, but maybe not pass block. And they've got 4 running backs that they feel really comfortable with going into camp. 5 if you include Kyle Juszczyk. I would use them all, and I would use them all early.
One of the things, we're having an issue a little bit with your microphone right now. It's Jim in the chat says, tell Dieter to plug his mic all the way.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm not sure, but several people have mentioned audio issues as we get rolling here.
Let's do it this way.
Our technical wizard. What do you think, Rye?
It was just it was a dusting of just pops. I mean, I think if you can go no earbuds, that works. As long as there's no like echo, that's cool.
We're no earbuds. If you hear me fine, I hear you fine.
It's a little on the low side now, huh?
Okay. How about this, Dieter? Maybe give it one more shot. Maybe this will be a magic plug-in.
This is the magic one. We're going.
We'll see. We shall see. Let's try to. Yeah, now it's hard to hear you. It says John Tyler GG says, tell him to plug his mic in all the way. I don't know if that's the case or if we should reboot or what.
It's very much like I feel like this is how I feel going into Week 1 with Trey Lance. I'm like, I think if he replugs the mic in, I think it'll be okay. I really think this interview is going to end up going well. But, there's just that little bit where I'm just, I don't want it popping the whole time.
Yeah. Dieter, how's it sounding now, buddy? Do you think it's better?
Me on the
Oh,
AirPods.
The AirPods.
How's this?
That's
Is
perfect.
this the winner?
That
Look at
there
that.
we go.
I come with
There we
options. Much like the triple option that the 49ers are likely going to be running against the Chicago Bears. No pops.
Why
no
don't we do
ups
this?
and
Why don't we do
downs.
this? Why don't we start? Let me start it again for you. I mean, even though we're not going to restart the whole live stream, but we can edit. We can do creative editing on the back end. So let me welcome you in again. The great Dieter Kurtenbach is joining us on the Krueg Show. Larry Kruger, Ryan Smith, Dieter Kurtenbach, known Dieter for years. He does a great job covering the 49ers. Does it on KMBR Radio. Has done it for the San Jose Mercury News and other outlets. And he's with us on the Krueg Show to break down Bears Niners Week 1. And why don't we start with the quarterback matchup? Because I think this is intriguing. You get two of the great young quarterback prospects. I saw a thing today that Justin Fields says he's going to make the 49ers regret passing on him. Or I think Darnell Mooney said that Justin Fields is going to make the 49ers regret passing on him. Mooney is his number one receiver. How do you see Justin Fields? Why don't we start with Justin Fields and we'll talk a little bit about Trey Lance?
I think Justin Fields is going to regret the fact that the Chicago Bears didn't go out and get him an actual number one receiver. I feel like that's going to be a big problem for him this upcoming season. I hear it. I hear it from my Chicago friends all the time. I mean, it's too much. It's too much on Justin Fields. They're putting way too much pressure on this kid's shoulder. They're asking him to be the guy that they haven't had. They faked Jay Cutler into being a franchise quarterback. They faked Rex Grossman, who took the team to a Super Bowl, by the way. They haven't had a guy. I mean, even Jim McMahon wasn't really that guy. We're going back Sid Luckman. I mean, names that no one knows about. Bears do not develop. They don't find top flight quarterbacks. Now, I like Justin Fields coming out of the draft. That was my guy at number 3. So it wouldn't stun me at all if this was his breakout season, but the infrastructure around him is rough. They're starting a rebuild in year 2 of his tenure, and the weapons around him are really questionable. I kind of like the backfield, but the offensive line is a real question mark. The offensive weapons around him, I mean, Darnell Mooney, nice enough player as a 4th or a 5th receiver. He's your number 1. You're going to have issues. They used to have 9 tight ends. They have 2 now. Neither of them are very good. I have a real issue with this Bears offense, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. But the fact that Matt Eberflus is the head coach, it tells you, too, that the organization isn't even focused on the offense. This is a league that's all about the head coach and the quarterback, and they went out and did something that's been proven kind of time and time again in this new modern era to not work, which is getting a defensive head coach. Ask the Denver Broncos how that just went for them. Ask the New York Jets how it's going with Robert Saleh. You go out and you get an offensive play caller that you compare with your top flight quarterback, this guy that you're handing the franchise to. And what did the Bears do? They went and got the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. And I've known Matt Eberflus for a long time. He was the defensive coordinator when I was at the University of Missouri. He's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but who's calling the plays there? What kind of an offense are they going to have? Justin Fields could be really good, but I don't see it materializing with this team around him. It takes more than just one quarterback to get this over the hump, especially if that quarterback has no track record. So I'm not buying Justin Fields this year just because the situation really, really matters. We know this in the NFL. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you get drafted in the wrong place, it will never materialize. I think that's case in point, Justin Fields. I think he got drafted to the wrong place. And I think we're going to see a lot of disjointedness and dysfunction and just a quarterback that has to do too much and is trying to do too much. And simplicity is the name of the game at this juncture in his career. I really don't like it. And it hurts me because I know so many people who live and die with the Chicago Bears. They're going to be dying way more than they're living.
It's such an interesting Fields is so interesting to me because he ran 4.4, but he still got sacked an awful lot at Ohio State. Now you say, how does a guy who runs 4.4 and is 220 pounds, how does this guy wind up getting sacked? Well, there's a lot of belief that he's slow in how he processes what he sees on the field, and that's in a sense kind of negates one of his greatest strengths is his mobility. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. The Bears have done him no favors. I mean, Allen Robinson was a must re-sign type player if you were going to make Justin Fields comfortable. Instead, Robinson's an LA Ram, and they're leaning on maybe the worst collection of offensive weapons in the entire league.
Hey, I've actually got some numbers to support it. So listen to this. This is, I mean, I feel so bad for Justin Fields and honestly, Bears fans. Trey and Justin Fields could not be in a more different situation. So this is offensive spending. So last year they were 29th, so still not great. This year they're 31st. Okay, last year they were 18th in running back spending. This year they're 24th. Last year they were 7th in wide receiver spending. This year they're 30th in wide receiver spending with a young quarterback. Last year they were 12th in tight end spending. This year they're 27. And offensive line, last year they were 29. This year they're 31st. So 31st in offensive line, 30th in wide receiver, 27th in tight end, 24th in running back. That is just, you're throwing them to the Lions, man.
And take it, well, first off, the Lions might actually get them this year, which is all in all indicting on the Chicago Bears. Like, they made the defense worse too. You know, we've heard so much from the 49ers this year. Kind of when Trey would have bad days, we'd hear in training camp, we'd hear, well, the defense, it's so good. It would be able to carry him. You don't even need a quarterback. I mean, look at what we just did with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Trey Lance, all he has to do is that, and we'll be just fine. The Bears are like, hey, you know the best player on our defense? Let's get rid of him. You know the second best player on our defense? Let's get rid of him too. How do you feel about like Robert Quinn, Eddie Jackson, and a bunch of just, who the hell are these guys? It's really quite embarrassing. Now, listen, NFL 2022, it's all about the quarterback. I know that it is actually possible that Justin Fields can get to that level, that he can be that dude, that he can just put the team on his shoulders and take them to like 8-9 wins. But that's the ceiling with this team. And that's if Justin Fields plays at an MVP caliber in year 2. If he doesn't do that, and I wouldn't bet on it, what are they looking at? They're looking at a position where they can draft Justin Fields' replacement. You don't start a rebuild in year 2 of a quarterback. What are you doing, Bears?
You know, I hate to do this to you, but we probably have to have you reconnect here, Dietz, because it's just crackling at a level that's so loud and so it's lots
I'll see you guys in a minute.
All right, we'll try to reconnect. We'll try to reconnect with Dieter.
So on fire, you know.
There was some good stuff there, and then all of a sudden we went back to him, and his mic started to really crackle.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay.
Well, we'll see if we can get him back on here and see if we can get this smoothed out. It's an interesting thing. Every time we do one of these live streams, you just never know how it's going to go as far as, Dieter's mic, people saying, maybe have him reconnect. People saying needs to plug his headphones all the way in now.
Somebody
I'm
saying
not sure.
Gargle with like salt water or something.
Yeah. Dieter's Rice Krispies, snap, crackle, and pop. So
you know what? It was interesting. I was talking to Dan. We were doing the NFL over-unders, and he got a little convinced by your Tom Thayer interview. Just listening to him talk, he was a little more optimistic on the Bears, and I was like, Dan, I get it. You got to talk yourself into the season, and it was a really great interview. But I laid those same numbers on him. Like, dude, they probably have the worst offensive line and combination of weapons in the league, and with a young quarterback who is still developing. And I think that's another interesting thing is it's like everybody that wanted Trey Lance to play so badly last year, just throw him in, get him in there. It's like you look at these other situations around the league and all the other top guys that got taken. I'd rather be in Trey Lance's position 100 times out of 100. Where you're
oh, absolutely. Do you want to have a good team or a bad team? I mean, the Bears are a less talented team this year than they were last year. Last year, they won 6 games. The 49ers went to the NFC Championship game and are better have more talent than a year ago. So these are teams going in opposite directions. The Bears' offensive line has been a major problem. They just picked up Alex Leatherwood. Tevin Jenkins has failed at tackle and has now been moved to guard. The offensive, the weapons, as you said, are lacking. They just lost their number one receiver to the Rams in free agency. And we haven't even gotten to the other side of the football. No. This team used to have Khalil Mack. This team used to have Akeem Hicks. This team used to have Eddie Goldman. I mean, none of those guys are on the front anymore. In a way, I think Fields, it looks like he's set up for failure here.
Absolutely. And it's one of those weird situations where, I mean, I don't think anyone can judge Justin Fields, but it's also like, if you're going to, with this supporting cast, how are you going to get anything out of this season? If Fields struggles, to me, that doesn't tell you much because the team you put around him is so god awful. But it's also like you're not. It would be one thing if you had kind of a young quarterback and you're not going to make the playoffs, but at least you can kind of see him develop. You can get a better, you can kind of like Trevor Lawrence this year. I feel like you can get a better grasp on where he's at, who he truly is. Second year. With Justin Fields, it's like this whole season, it's like I don't know what the objective would be. Like, what would be the mission statement be by the general manager? I mean,
well, it's a new regime. I mean, Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, new regime. So the expectations are low. They won 6 games. I think they just want to get Justin Fields out there and try to get him comfortable, but they don't have a great line. They don't have a great equation. They don't have a great defense. They don't have any receivers. I mean, really, I would say their best receiver is Mooney. Their second best receiver is probably Cole Kmet. I mean, that's a far cry from the top teams in the league for sure. All right, we'll go back to the green room where Dieter Kurtenbach is joining us. Dieter, there we go. How's that?
Well, you tell me. You tell me how this is.
This is way better.
Okay.
Yeah, way better. So we'll edit the whole thing together, but we'll stay with that. Let me ask you. Steve Young, I thought was really interesting this week. And he basically came on the radio and he said that, Jimmy Garoppolo, the fact that there's not a single team interested in Jimmy Garoppolo is a referendum on Jimmy Garoppolo, and it should be alarming to him. And Steve says, use this time to go re-challenge that narrative that's out there, that you're not a starting quarterback. You're not a starting quarterback for the 49ers, but nobody else wanted you as a starting quarterback. Now, it could be related to the contract, but even after the renegotiated deal, he's still with the Niners as a backup. Steve said he was alarmed that nobody was interested in Garoppolo as a starter. And obviously, he's got to figure out what the issue is. So he doesn't have the same result over and over again. In short, we've all watched him, but let's get into it a little bit. What is it? The Jimmy Garoppolo has been to the NFC title game 2 times in the last 3 years. He's won an NFC championship game. He's outdueled Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. There's a lot to point to on his resume that says this guy is not just a starting NFL quarterback, but maybe a starting NFL quarterback of note. But now we've got the facts, which is nobody wanted to trade for him. And Kyle Shanahan, despite what I just said, did not want him as his starting quarterback. He preferred Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. So what is it that Jimmy's not doing or doing that is making teams view him as maybe a great backup, but not quite good enough to be a starter? What do you think, Dieter?
Well, let's start with the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game we just saw. He had a quarterback rating of 4.2. Let's think back to the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo there. 49ers up by 10. He had a quarterback rating of 2.4. I find those numbers to be somewhat symmetrical and rather pleasing to my mind, though not pleasing to 49ers fans. There have been 2 times clearly where the other team has said to Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers, you got to beat us. It's your turn. You got this great team around you. You got 50 other guys who are kicking ass. And they're kicking our ass, and we're going to make you beat us. And both of those times, he has failed to do so. And that is going to linger. Here's the bigger issue. He hasn't gotten better. You can argue that his best football was played in the 5 games that he played for the 49ers at the end of the 2017 season, when they didn't have a playbook. They were just sort of running off of stuff that Kyle and him both knew, because they didn't have a training camp. He showed up on Halloween, and they're like, we got to get you in here because we suck. Let's figure out what we can mix together. And he wins 5 straight games and is now the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And since that point, you can argue that he has gotten worse. It's never felt like that. That's for sure. He had a great game, I would, to his credit. He had a great game in Seattle, week 17, 2019. He had a couple of really nice games down that stretch.
New Orleans.
He's not a scrub. He's not terrible. But if you're asking why is he not viewed with the status that the team's success should imply, it's because far too often, if not exclusively, throughout the 49ers' runs towards quality, Garoppolo was seen as more of an impediment than part of the formula for success. We say that he's outdueled Aaron Rodgers. He didn't throw the ball, and he didn't score a touchdown in the 2 games against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. He threw 8 times in the NFC Championship game in 2018. The 49ers offense was abysmal at Lambeau Field this past postseason. So he has been sort of a latcher on. He's been a mollusk on the side of the SS 49ers. And I don't know what Trey Lance is going to be, but the bar is not very high. It's high. It's starter quality, but it's not terribly high, because Jimmy Garoppolo still, after 4 years of being the starting quarterback for the 49ers, was making rookie mistakes, just missing linebackers over the middle, incapable of completing out routes, just basic stuff that you would think would have come along at some point. Oh, well, he really knows Kyle's offense now. He's only been in it for 4 years. It never got to the second level. And in fact, it was to the point where you were thinking, maybe they should go back to the simplified version of the offense. That felt like Jimmy Garoppolo was a better quarterback then. The shoulder injury had a lot to do with why he didn't get traded. There was probably going to be a deal or two that was available to the 49ers had the shoulder injury and the shoulder surgery not come about. But there was not some hot market for Jimmy Garoppolo. There was not a bunch of people knocking at the door saying, hey, we got to get Jimmy. And then they backed off when they found out what was going on with his crab meat shoulder. No, it was limited to begin with, and then it became zero. And I could have told you. I've been telling you for 18 months. They've had one good trade offer for Jimmy Garoppolo in 18 months. They've been trying to sell him for 18 months. And that trade offer they would have gladly taken any day over the last month or so. And that trade offer, when they got it before the draft in 2021, they scoffed and said, that's ridiculous. It's just they will overvalue him to the very end. That very end is coming at the end of the year. But they overvalued him when they paid the second round pick for him. They overvalued him when they made him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Fair deals, sure, but overvalues nevertheless. They overvalued him all the way by never getting him a quality backup quarterback. Then they go and they overpay for Trey Lance to move up to number 3. So a bit of an overvaluing with Jimmy Garoppolo there too. And then they paid him more than he was going to get on the open market. He was going to sit on the open market, Larry, for at least a month, while the other teams that were going to eventually come to him went through their little charade of the quarterback for the first month of the season. They just overvalue him. And I for the life of me, he's a great guy. Everyone likes him. But as a quarterback, I just don't get it.
Well, it's interesting because he obviously there's places that he could have gone and
no doubt
he'd be extremely beneficial. Cleveland, but Seattle. But it's just interesting because somebody actually in the chat said a lot of the teams that would maybe go trade for Jimmy Garoppolo are kind of in tank mode.
Totally.
And he's like just he's good enough that he'll win you some games. And then it's almost like, is he going to get the rap of the guy that's, super cool with the young quarterbacks? And, maybe we bring him in like, sort of the way Tyrod Taylor seems to be moving around the league. He's better than Tyrod Taylor. He has like a big Ryan Fitzpatrick energy to him, except for the fact that like Ryan Fitzpatrick has more physical talent. He's in a weird spot. Yeah. He's in a football purgatory. But like the Carson Wentz trade, for example, I feel like that could have been Jimmy, but because of the shoulder, the quarterback musical chairs started and everybody sat down by the time Jimmy was available to trade. also. So it's a weird situation.
What do you guys expect that we're going to see this year out of the Niner offense? And I bring this up because I thought the cut down was extremely revealing. The Niners are trying to carry 5 backs, 4 tight ends, and a fullback on their 53. They're also going deep on the offensive line, very deep on the offensive line. You look at their backs, they're averaging about 214 pounds. You've got some bigger bodied tight ends. They're one of only maybe 2/3 of the league have a fullback. They're one of the teams that carries a fullback. Ty Davis Price is about 220. Jordan Mason maybe closer to 230, 225 in that range. John Lynch said this week, we got a great coaching staff, and it starts with our head coach. He's a great play caller, but it's not all about scheme. At some point, you got to impose your will on people. And then he kind of sounded like he's learned from some of his failed draft picks, Dante Pettis and the like, saying some of our early picks that didn't pan out. You say, why didn't they pan out? And then probably a rebound effect. Okay, we're gonna go get thick, strong, and tough players, and you start seeing it. So what do you think? I mean, the 49ers, it seems like the whole game plan here is to have a run-heavy scheme in Trey Lance's first year. What's your read on the way the roster was pared down?
I think you nailed it. I think that this is going to be a heavy team. I think that that's probably been a long time coming. Add in the fact that one of their wide receivers, arguably their best wide receiver, an all-pro last year, he's a big, thick boy that you want to line up in the backfield. You want him carrying the ball between the tackles. There's not a lot of finesse about this operation. Trey Lance found that out in week 5 last year against Arizona. He has been the best athlete in Marshall, Minnesota, in Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, he has been the dude his entire life, and he shows up at the NFL level. And at training camp last year, he was kind of the dude. I mean, he played up against some pretty good players, don't get me wrong, but like Nick Bosa wasn't really around. Get Fred Warner kind of in and out. And then he shows up Arizona week 5. Cardinals are cooking, right? They got a good buzz to him at that juncture in the season. And he tucks the ball to run it, and he finds out pretty quickly he's not running past the defensive ends, much less the linebackers or the safeties. I mean, he found out that the second level is not guaranteed in the run game when you're Trey Lance. That's the first time in his life that happened. So what does Trey Lance have as a runner that other quarterbacks don't? Because he is not going to be a terribly elusive runner. He's got some toughness. He's got some serious smarts to him. And so you build around that. You build around the physicality of your football team. There's also this, there's a beauty to it as well, where Robert Griffin III, who Kyle Shanahan had when they were in Washington, he got totally injured. They ran the read option. Robert Griffin III was, won the Heisman, obviously, but then is this big deal. He was kind of going to take the league by storm, a lot like what Lamar Jackson sort of did with Baltimore a few years later. But RG3 and the read option, that was a big deal. And then RG3's body just couldn't take it. This is why Texas recruited him to be a safety. I think with Trey Lance, they could run the triple option. They could run the read option at the NFL level and be really successful with it. But it's not going to be sort of this lightning quick speed stuff. This is going to be between the tackles, knocking off a player or two as you push forward. And, Trey's on a cheap deal. He's on that rookie contract. They have Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. That's a really good place to be. I think that they are going to really test the physical limits of Trey Lance. I think they're going to test all of the running backs that they kept on the roster. They're probably going to find a couple of more. I think that they're going to really push George Kittle as a blocker. I think that this offensive line doesn't pass protect very well, but it does run block really well, and we saw that in the preseason. I've seen it at training camp. I think that Kyle Shanahan puts more pressure on his wide receivers than any other coach in the NFL to be great blockers, and I think they just gave Deebo Samuel a bunch of money and a bunch of contingencies that say he can still run the ball. I think they're going full Woody Hayes with this. I don't know if they put the ball in the air unless they absolutely have to. And I think they get away with it. I think that they are just going to run. They're going to be a more physical version of that Baltimore offense that we saw a couple of years ago when Lamar Jackson won MVP. And while I don't think Trey Lance is really going to be in that conversation, I do think it's going to be really fun to watch. And I think it's going to really test Kyle and his play calling abilities, because it's just going to be a different dynamic. It's not going to be that sort of, roll out play action that they have been running year over year. I think it's going to be a completely different offense. And I think it has a chance to be really prolific. And I think it's going to make games go by really fast, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to.
Let's get into some like pre-regular season predictions as far as awards. Guys, give me your offensive and defensive MVPs for this team this year. Who's going to be the offensive MVP? Who's going to be the defensive MVP? Either one of you want to jump in first? Rye, you want to go first?
Go around.
I'm going to go Kittle. I think Kittle, if you're looking to draft him in a fantasy league, it might not be, I don't think he's going to be as productive receiving wise, but I think he's just going to be so vital as a blocker. And I think we sort of saw that in the Arizona game when he wasn't there. And I think it was Dwelly blocking. And there's a couple plays. I remember I was, not to brag, but I watched a little bit of the All-22 and I was like, wow, they actually had some stuff cooked up and Dwelly just absolutely got roasted or missed the block. So I think Kittle is going to be the offensive MVP this year.
What do you think, Deeds?
I'll give you defensive MVP first. I think Emmanuel Mosley is about to have a monster year. Now, I do this every year, so this is not exactly an original take, but Emmanuel Mosley is going to get a lot more opportunities than he really deserves to have thrown his way. He's a really good corner. He's crazy athletic. But Charvarius Ward, he's really good. I haven't seen a press corner like this in a minute, and that's one of my favorite things in football is a great press corner. This guy is special. This guy is really impressive. And I think the NFL is going to realize really quickly, you're just not throwing on that dude. Not with Nick Bosa coming down into your grill, not with Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead, who has been so fantastic once they moved him into once they moved him from 5 technique into 3 technique. I think, we know this 49ers defensive line is going to get after it. We know their linebacker core is as good as any in the NFL. Got some serious questions about safety with no Jimmy Ward early, but cornerback is a sterling position. They could have the best 2 corners in the NFL. Question what's going on with Womack in the slot. We'll see if that translates preseason to regular season, but I don't think they throw Ward's way. I think they throw Mosley's way a lot, and I think with that athleticism and the way that he's just improved in sort of understanding the game, being a student of the game, reading quarterbacks, reading receivers over the years, man, I think that he could have a big-time pick number this year. And while, it'll probably be because of Bosa, because of that defensive line, because of Fred Warner, because of all these things, I think he's going to be the flash player. And at the end of the year, we'll be saying, man, that guy was the MVP because, well, defense is hard to evaluate.
Rye, you want to throw your defensive MVP before I give mine? You went Kittle on offense. Who are you going with on defense?
So I really like that pick, Dieter, because I think I think that's one thing that's going to benefit them a ton this year is they've not had more than 12 picks in the Kyle Shanahan era in one season.
Which some years it felt like they only had like 2 or 3.
Seriously, I think there was one year where they only had 3. So
I remember it was a lead year.
As far as turnover differential, they are always, even the years when they made it to the Super Bowl, NFC Championship last year, they're always, lower, low on the low end, maybe middle of the pack, I think in 19. But so I love that pick. I'm going to go with the flashy, kind of easy pick. I'm picking Bosa. I think the backs giving
chalk.
Them,
Rye's going chalk.
That's fine, man. He could win Defensive Player of the Year. I'd go with him too.
I think he is going to win Defensive Player of the Year because there's so many times where it's just a split hair second and he would have got a sack. Mm-hmm. And now with this new and improved backfield, I think that he is just going to eat up.
Okay, I'm going to give you the scout perspective. I'm going to pretend like I know nothing about the 49ers, and all I know about the 49ers is what I've seen this summer on the field, okay? So that's a different category, right? Because we know they're great players that didn't necessarily show a lot this summer. They didn't necessarily need to, right? Because they don't need to. Bosa doesn't need to make the team. Trent Williams doesn't need to make the team. I'm going to give you a couple right now. I'm going to give you Javon Kinlaw on defense, who to me, if Javon Kinlaw that I saw against Minnesota in Eagan, Minnesota, if the Javon Kinlaw that I saw in that Vikings preseason game, if that cat shows up, he's as good as anybody on that line, and that includes Nick Bosa. He was totally overpowering people. He was bulldozing NFL offensive linemen. I felt like I was watching like a future NFL prospect playing at the FCS level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you see those films, and you're like, wow, look at this guy. He's totally
some real
dominant.
5-star stuff.
Exactly. Kinlaw has massive talent, and he's lean and he's mean and he's hungry, and I don't know why he's fired up. Maybe Grant Cohn fired him up.
No,
maybe
it's because they're not going to pick up his 5th-year option unless he has a big year. That's
well,
why.
it's maybe that he's considered a 2-down player and not a 3-down player. But I think Javon Kinlaw is absolutely dominant, and I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see a guy who just caves in offensive lines and makes and sacks the quarterback. He's got 1.5 sacks in 18 career games. That means he does not sack the quarterback. But man, I think that trend is going to change, and I think Kinlaw is going to have a incredible year. So he's my defensive MVP. My offensive MVP, to me, when I watch the Niners, I see a run-heavy scheme and Trey on a pitch count and Shanahan intrigued by the space that by the vertical threats that he's now added. And I just think the one thing about Trey that I think is advanced is he throws a Russell Wilson type deep ball. If you watch him in these things, in these practices, whether it be minicamp, training camp, he's struggling with the 12-yard out, especially to his left side. He's airmailing that thing. The arm angle isn't right. He's got lots of work to do. But if you just want to isolate his down the field throws, his deep ball, he's dropping it in the bucket and hitting guys in stride. And they have Danny Gray from SMU, and Danny Gray is smart and tough and fast. I like Danny Gray. I think Danny Gray up top is going to become a major weapon for the 49ers. I think they're going to hit him a number of times. I think he's going to run by coverage all season long. I think he's going to create tons of space underneath for Debo and Kittle and Ayuk and anybody else for that matter. And I'm going to say offensive MVP is Trey is going to find Danny Gray down the field for 6. It's going to happen a lot. And I don't think it's going to happen like once every month. I think it's going to happen very frequently, much more frequently than we think. So I'm going to say Danny Gray and Javon Kinlaw. Give me your guys' feedback.
I love the Danny Gray pick. That's bold, though. It's bold. He's a rookie, rookie wide receivers. You never really know. They've said a lot of nice things about his toughness. Obviously, the speed is undeniable. I'm down with the Danny Gray pick. I know where you're coming from. I know how you play this game, Larry. It's a great Larry Kruger pick. Love that. Kinlaw has a chance to be special. He weighs 330 pounds and he has a 6-pack. That's not normal. And I feel like that should matter on a football field. If you have that kind of lean muscle mass and you're playing one technique with the kind of explosion that he has, if he stays healthy, and the Niners have said this ad nauseum to the point where it's almost a trope, but it's true. This is true. If he's healthy, you can't stop him. And Eric Armstead, maybe that's the guy I should have picked, because I think that we have glossed over how good Eric Armstead was once they finally decided that he's no longer a defensive end. Now, I think he was pretty good at 5 technique. I think he was pretty good as a defensive end, but they had to put him at the 3. They just needed somebody. They slid him in there because he was the only living body who could pull it off on the team at the time. And he's put on weight this offseason. I think it's good weight. I think he has a chance to have a DeForest Buckner-like season because I think he has that kind of talent. I really like. I have done a complete 180 on Eric Armstead. It used to be like he would just annoy me. It just always felt like there was something left untapped with Eric Armstead week after week. It never felt fulfilling. And as soon as he slid inside, I'm whole again. I watch it and I say, that looks right. That feels right. And it makes this defense feel in a lot of ways complete. I want to throw my offensive MVP at you guys though. Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't trust Elijah Mitchell as far as I can throw him right now. Sorry, it's a hamstring injury that kept him out almost all preseason. We're talking 2 games into the year, and that thing's going to tighten up, and we're going to see him hobbling off the field. I hope it's not the case because he's a brilliant player and a great guy and all this stuff, but we've just seen that too many times. I can't put my money on Elijah Mitchell right now. I hope that I have to eat my words on that one. But I'm loving what I'm seeing from Jeff Wilson. He runs with an anger. We knew that about Jeff Wilson. But as Eric Armstead has put on some weight, Jeff Wilson's taken a little bit off. Now, he is still a bowling ball. He is still that kind of dude. But even with the depth that they have at running back, 2 of those guys have never played in the NFL before. right? They have two guys that they just don't really know if they can trust right now. Mitchell's 1 year in. And remember, he was the fourth dude on the depth chart. They just had to slide him in. They were running Deebo Samuel back there. They trust Jeff Wilson, and I think they trust Jeff Wilson on third down. He's a really good route runner. We saw that in the Super Bowl in 2019 with that Texas route. But he's got good hands. He has a good eye, a good feel, right? How to sit in that zone on third down. Then he can bowl over a cornerback, bowl over a safety, get you that first. I think he has a chance to be a 3-down back in this system, not initially, but maybe halfway through the season. And with the way that they're going to run the ball this year, I think that there's a big potential. You're going to want him. You're going to want him in your fantasy league. Let's put it that way. I think that Jeff Wilson Jr. has a chance to be the guy that we're talking about week in and week out when it comes to the crunch time, the money time of the NFL season, late November, Thanksgiving through the beginning of January. So I'm going with Jeff Wilson Jr. and a very talented, but pretty diverse offense.
Yeah, that's a great call, Dieter. He's never looked better than the way Jeff Wilson has looked this year. All right, let's go to another category. Give me the player that right now, going into week one, is the biggest concern for you. Biggest concern player for the 49ers going into the regular season. Go ahead.
I can't pick the free safety because I don't know who the free safety is going to be. So let me instead go to right tackle and Mike McGlinchey. It was good to see McGlinchey get back onto the practice field here this past week. There was a lot of questions on if he was going to be ready for week one. He came back with enough time that that's not in question anymore. But I did not like what I saw from him in the limited snaps coming off of that quad tear. And the surgery and all that this past offseason, he can still run block. He's still an excellent run blocker. He's moving pretty well. He's got good weight on him right now. His issue has always been anchoring. His issue has always been a guy coming up in his grill, him setting his feet, getting low, and pushing him up. And now he's got this torn quad, which I just say it and it hurts my body. It's surgically repaired. He's got a bulky knee now. Man, if I'm the Chicago Bears, if I'm Robert Quinn, I'm thinking bull rush every single snap. You got to protect this quarterback. I know that he's got mobility and that he can move around and it's not a statue back there. And you know what you're getting from Trent Williams on the left side. He's the best player in the entire sport, not just left tackle. It's him and Aaron Donald. Those class of two. Maybe Tom Brady gets in there just off of principle. But man, right tackle just seems like a big issue. You got Spencer Burford there at right guard. We don't know what he's going to be. I've liked what I saw from him in camp, but the 49ers couldn't even really pay attention to him in camp. They just said, hey, he's been fine. We got to worry about left guard. We got to worry about center. And we got to worry about right tackle. Right tackle's huge. I'm really worried about that position because if you can't pass protect on the third downs that you actually got to throw it, if you're just going to get bull rushed every single time at right tackle, I mean, this offense is going to be one-dimensional. One-dimensional offenses, even if they're elite at that one dimension, don't win in the NFL.
Ryan, jump in on your concerned, the player that concerns you the most. And by the way, if people in the chat throw some super chats, we definitely will get to them just at the end of the interview. Ryan, go ahead. Who's concerning to you?
You know what? I'll go with the other safety then. The safety I know, Talanoa Hufanga.
Good call.
It's only going to be more important just because when Ward's out. And, I've been kind of drinking the Kool-Aid on people talking about Hufanga really improving, and it seems like, his what he lacks in speed, maybe his processing is picked up to the point where he's able to make up for it. But I mean, we just can't have two bum safeties back there. That automatically becomes the thing that teams start picking on. Because really, I mean, that's the crazy thing about this exercise is I really had to wrap my brain in okay, aside from the obvious Trey Lance, I mean, the Niners are freaking loaded. They're pretty loaded at every position.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go Hufanga. I want to see him have a great year. I know Larry, you're super high on him. I just want to see him out there in the games and see how that speed translates, see if it really looks different. And I'm hoping he can become a big part of the team.
My concern is at center with Jake Brendel. I just think Brendel is a guy that is not a starting center in the NFL. And I'd be surprised if he's not replaced, in the first 6 or 7 games. I know Shanahan speaks so highly of him, but I just haven't seen it. I don't see dominant traits. I don't see overwhelming strength. I don't see overwhelming quickness. I don't see anything really. To me, he's just a guy. So we'll see. But that's the one that stands out to me. And I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, the roster is stacked. The Niners have a tremendous roster. All right, how about this? Surprise player. Who's your guys' surprise 49er this year? The guy that today we are not talking about, but man, as this season progresses, we're going to talk more about this guy. Who do you think?
Is it unfair to say Drake Jackson?
No,
Is it
not at all.
unfair to say that the rookie who has had a pretty up and down camp doesn't feel like the Niners coaching staff has a great grasp on him yet? They know he's really talented, but they're not really sure what to do with him quite yet. They're throwing him in situations to sink or swim in the preseason. It's undeniable, the talent. His weight's in a good spot. That's the only reason the 49ers have him. He really messed up his weight that final year at USC, man. Playing up heavy. It was bad. And he looks it. He looks it. He's got a little baby fat that he's got to, tone up a little bit. And you could see him processing everything. He seems like a pretty sharp kid. You could see him sort of just taking in all of the Chris Kasarik energy, taking in every Bosa snap with serious intent. When he was watching, he was an active watcher. And Sansa Mabukam is going to have a really nice year opposite Nick Bosa. There's no question about that. How can you not have a good year across from Nick Bosa? But Samson Ebukam, there's a reason that he's on the 49ers, right? They couldn't stay healthy. You can't really trust him to be a 3-down kind of player. And even then, you can't really trust him to be in, week out. I think, let's say maybe November 1, maybe even earlier than that, the 49ers start really integrating Drake Jackson into this defense, and he becomes the bookend to Nick Bosa. And I think that has potential to be really, really cool, because the athleticism of a Jackson with that weight, with that ability to protect in the run game, I think he could have some really big games and some really big numbers by the time the season's over, even though he'll probably only play about half of it.
Ryan, you got a bust out player? Who stands out to you? Who's going to break out this year?
We already lost Danny Gray here
Yeah,
because somebody picked him as offensive MVP.
Right. That's right.
That was a genius move.
2 steps ahead of us.
I got to agree with Drake Jackson.
You can double up. I'm not
going to double up here. This is a little bit of a combination of a little bit of a.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, he had a massive camp. I saw people, arguing on. I think Grant Cohn said he's going to be under his receiving total, 700 something. I think that he's going to have a more prolific receiving year than Deebo Samuel will. But just from looking at watching at camp, I mean, his connection's undeniable. It seems like the Deebo, and maybe this is a little bit more of a knock with Deebo, but it just seems like Lance and Deebo, the chemistry maybe is not quite there.
They were forcing it a little bit in
Yeah.
camp. They tried to get the deep route every single practice, and they connected on it maybe once or twice. Deebo doesn't separate great in those situations, and he's just, it sucks to say because it feels like a slight, but I mean this with the utmost respect. Like, he's a gimmick player of the highest order. He's a gadget player. You put him in situations where he can just ruin dudes, but one of those situations is not just running a 9 route. Like, that's just not his game. And so I'm interested to see if the reason they kept forcing it in training camp and in the preseason games was because that's an integral part of the offense, or they were just sort of messing around and seeing if they could do that too. And we'll get back to the slants sooner rather than later. But I'm with you. I think Ayuk's going to have a better statistical year and perhaps even a better emotional year than Deebo Samuel.
Well, and like what Larry said about Trey, I think I've said this a couple times. Like, he kind of reminds me of Happy Gilmore. Like, he's got that unbelievable, top of the league arm strength, and his deep ball when he's just not thinking and hucking it.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's like the Happy Gilmore drives, but he hasn't quite learned to putt yet in the same way that like a Garoppolo has. And I just worry about, Deebo how many times it was just quick, get it out quick to Deebo, and then it's just let him cook.
That was the offense.
Yeah, that was the offense. And I I worry a little bit about the Trey Debo connection there. And so, yeah, all right, I'm going Ayuk.
I'm going to go as far as, a guy who I think is going to surprise me a little bit this year. I like Nick Zakelj. I mean, we talked so much about Jason Poe, and Poe was impressive at times in the preseason and ultimately didn't make the team, but is on the Niner practice squad. We didn't spend any time talking about Nick Zakelj. He is smart. He's tough. And I think when, kind of piggybacking my last point about how I think Jake Brendel may be the concern, I think Nick Zakelj is the guy that's going to come out of nowhere and break out. And I think he's going to be the center. He plays nasty. He's really smart. He's really aggressive. He's really tough, and he's getting better. He was Pro Football Focus's highest graded 49er on offense in that final preseason game against the Texans. I've been watching Zakelj since minicamp, and he's very, very physical. And then when you heard John Lynch this week and Adam Peters talking about his potential, it's pretty clear that they really like this player. And physically, I think he's more than Brendel and more than Brunskill. And I think if they're going to look for, to fortify that interior in front of Trey, they're going to want smart, tough, accountable, getting better, assignment sound. I think it's going to be Nick Zakelj. And I know that's like, what? Who's Nick Zakelj? I can't even spell Zakelj. John Lynch said it's Zakelj with a J, and add the J on. But I think Nick Zakelj is going to be the breakout kind of player that nobody's really banking on.
It's interesting, Larry, because there's no nice way to put this. Beginning a training camp, he looked like the first guy out the door. He looked like he was going to get cut like on the field. And so I take with a grain of salt, though I see it. I'm seeing what you're seeing. He has gotten better, and he is physical, and there's something there, and I get it. I'm picking up what they're laying down. It wasn't a very high bar to get over. Like, anyone could have improved from where he started. So a credit to him for making the team from that juncture. We were certain that he was done. And the physicality is there. Center is an interesting position too. You know better. Like, center's not necessarily just put the best guy there. It takes a lot of cerebral energy, takes a lot of cerebral depth to be able to play that position, especially for Kyle Shanahan. He'll take the trade-off in athleticism all day, every day, if he has a guy that he trusts that can always identify the Mike linebacker, and especially in a read option offense, always be able to figure out what kind of a front they're facing. That is vital to what they're going up against. So I like Brendel. I'm not as down on Brendel as you, but I'm picking up what you're laying down, what John Lynch is laying down about Nick Zakelj. And listen, my sister went to Fordham. My brother-in-law's from Fordham. We root for the Rams over here with the Fordham Rams, of course. We root for the Rams over here at the Kurtenbach household. So we'd love to see a Ram do well for the 49ers.
There you go. All right, we'll a couple more predictions and we'll let Dieter go. The one thing about the NFL, we all think we know it. We all think we study it. We watch it. We got a pretty good handle on it. And then the games start. And it doesn't go according to plan. And the teams you want to wager on surprise you. The teams you're wagering against surprise you. Players that you thought couldn't play can. Players that you thought could play can't. And it's just, there's a number of surprises. And so one of my favorite articles this time of year is the bold predictions. I love reading late August bold predictions because they sound crazy. And yet, you know what? They're always like somewhat envisionable. So I want to finish this live stream with Dieter with bold predictions. First, we'll start Niners, then we'll go league. Give me a bold 49er prediction or two that here we are late, early September. People are not thinking this, but by the time the season comes and goes, they'll look at us and say, you know what? I heard it there first. I heard Dieter say it first. I heard Ryan say it first. Larry said it first. I heard him on a live stream with Dieter and Ryan. Give me a Niner bold prediction or two that you really believe in. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. The really believe in part is the stretch here. But there is a world where this happens. there is very much a world where Trey Lance is the NFL's MVP at the end of the year. And I don't think that it takes 49ers colored glasses to get there. I think that the potential that this kid has and the gamer attitude that I think he's shown, because it doesn't always translate on the practice field, but there's a lot of guys who practice really well. I mean, Trey Sermon is playing for the Eagles now. He practiced great. Every day, training camp, you're like, hey, Trey Sermon, not half bad. Then he gets out in the game and it just fell flat. I think Trey Lance in this offense, with the sort of running that they're going to do, with the talent that he has around him, with the defense that can hold him up early, with the team that has expectations, I think he can win MVP. I really do. Now, I'd like some nice long odds on that, but he can absolutely win MVP in his first year as a full-time starter. And it'd be great if he could get off to that very early on, because then we can shut up about Jimmy Garoppolo. We can shut up about all the stuff that we saw in training camp, which was valid. We saw it. There were concerns. If he comes out of the gate and just whoops the Bears in week 1 and whoops the Seahawks in week 2, two teams that they very well could beat handily. I think they're a touchdown favorite over Chicago, 9-point favorite over Seattle at this juncture. This ball gets rolling a little bit. You don't want Kyle Shanahan with momentum behind him as a play caller. If this team stays healthy, and I'm throwing 55 caveats on it, let me just give it to you simple. Trey Lance has the talent and the infrastructure to win MVP this year. That's my bold prediction. We'll see how stupid I look or how genius I look come, let's say Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's why they call it a bold prediction, right? Well, you got one? What do you got?
I mean, it just sounds so chalky coming out of my mouth. But, I mean, technically it is still like 16, 17 to 1. I am so confident that Nick Bosa is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's not only the fact that I think that, his sack total is going to go nutso this year, but I think there's a weird sort of thing because Joey Bosa was first on the scene. If you notice, there's a lot of times where you're watching national broadcasts and they called Nick Bosa Joey Bosa, and you don't really hear it. You never hear it the other way around. And I think that he is being slept on just enough. I don't think people think of him in the same category that they do with TJ Watt, when in reality, he's there. He's absolutely there. So I think, and also people get bored of giving it to the same guy over and over. I think Nick Bosa, I am very confident that he is going to be at least top 2. And I already put a kind of dangerous amount of money on him too.
Let me throw one more at you guys, because this just dawned on me. How about the 49ers go undefeated in the NFC West this year? How about that for a bold prediction?
That is bold. I haven't done that in a long time.
I don't know the last time they did it, but Seattle, oh boy. I mean, good luck to you, Pete. I know you're going for a power struggle, but there might not be a kingdom by the time you gain all the power there. That's a tough situation up there in Seattle. Niners get them early. That's one under the belt. We'll see what happens in the second one. I think the Arizona situation is a mess. I mean, just nothing good came out of Arizona this past offseason. Plus, they got the Hard Knocks cameras on them all year. We know what happens when that goes down. That is a recipe for disaster. And Kyle Shanahan, listen, the Rams are the Super Bowl champions. They are worthy champions. Outstanding football team. Kyle Shanahan has Sean McVay's number. Would have liked to have seen that number come up a couple more times in the NFC Championship game, get him over the hump. But before that, what was it, 6 in a row? So beat the Rams twice. We've seen the Niners do that a lot. Beat the Seahawks twice. We haven't seen that a lot, but it's hard not to see it happening this year. Usually you split with Arizona, if you're lucky. Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury apparently has Kyle's number. But I don't like anything that's going on in Arizona. Give me 6-0 against the NFC West.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to go bold prediction. We talk so much about how great this 49er defense is.
Oh, I know what you're doing.
The 49ers are going to struggle to stop the run up the gut. They're going to miss DJ Jones. If you look at that depth chart, the one thing when I watch the preseason games, I hate to say it for a third time, and that is a sickness, and I apologize to everybody.
That's between you and your wife.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Givens is getting moved in the run game. Eric Armstead is strong against the run. But DJ Jones was the force inside. And now Kinlaw steps in, and Kinlaw plays, he's an incredible player. He's got unbelievable power, and I think he's just going to make a huge impact. But his pad level, he plays high, he loses leverage at times. They're gonna miss the man that I used to call Leverage McLeverage, DJ Jones. And the Niners, for all of the talk about this incredible defense, are going to struggle to stop the run at the point because Givens can be moved, Ridgeway can be moved, Hyder's undersized. They're going to try to go with four pass rushers and line Drake Jackson and Jordan Willis and Amenahue and Hyder inside at times. None of those guys can stop the run. Javon Kinlaw is their one force inside, and even he sometimes does not play with leverage, and running backs run by him. They're going to miss DJ Jones. The Niners, with all their defensive prowess, all the defensive talent, I think they're going to struggle against the run up the gut. I'll also say this. I really believe this. If the Niners secondary can stay healthy, the secondary will replace the front as the strength of the defense outside of backers. I mean, the backers are tremendous, probably the best backer group in the league. Okay. But the Niner D-line has been leading the way, and the secondary has been kind of coming along for the ride. If you get Womack at nickel, Mooney on one corner, Mosley on another corner, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dieter. Mosley's going to have a breakout year. If Jimmy Ward and Hufanga stay healthy, that's a tremendous nickel. And I think you may see the nickel 70% of the time, and I think that secondary is going to lock people down. And I think there's a chance that the secondary is more dominant. And I'll make one last bold prediction. I think the 49ers somewhere in this season are going to be forced to start Brock Purdy, and he is going to win a game in the regular season as a starter this year. So those are my three bold predictions for the 49ers. What do you guys think?
That is
really
bold.
Good. That is really bold.
I love
very bold.
I love one. I was thinking the same thing. I get accused of being negative too often, so I'm happy that you took that one. 2 is a very good prediction. Brock Purdy, we all like him. I think we might be drinking a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid here. I get why. Well, no, you know what? I don't get why. He would have gotten through waivers without an issue, Larry. I mean, I know that your tweets have power, but they don't have the kind of power that gets guys picked up for free. This was maybe more of a contractual issue than anything for the 49ers. They didn't want to actually have to waive him and then sign him to a new contract because he's cheap on the Mr. Irrelevant deal. And they thought, well, we got to keep one of these two guys. We might as well go with this guy because, listen, he was better than Sudfeld. There's no question about that, and he's way cheaper, and he's got upside, and I like Brock Purdy. But Kyle Shanahan overrates quarterbacks who just sort of have that Kyle Shanahan quality to them.
He kind of likes robots.
He likes guys who got a little scrappiness to them. He likes guys that remind him of himself. They're smart and they don't exactly have, the super traits that everybody else has, but they get it done. They're real gamers. That's why Kyle Shanahan was a slot receiver, and it's just like Brock Purdy's not winning you any games this year. I would love to see it. I would like to also remind everybody that Nick Mullins has the second most passing yards in the history of the NFL for any player through his first 16 games. Kyle Shanahan can scheme it up, but like Brock Purdy, maybe down the line, he could be a good backup. I like him. I think there's something to him. I'm glad that they kept him, but they could have gotten him on the practice squad. And if you need to go to Brock Purdy, if Trey Lance is down, if Jimmy Garoppolo is down and you're going to Brock Purdy, I mean, I'm glad that he won that game because I don't know how many more of them are winning.
They're going to Purdy, and he's going to win a big game. Go ahead, Rye. What were you going to say?
Okay, this is originally what I wanted to say, but it's not really me being an analyst or making any predictions. It's kind of stupid. This year, the 49ers will be lucky. And by lucky, I mean this. Turnover differential, I believe, is a bit of luck. It's a bit of personnel. Okay, let me read you the turnover By the way, if you lose the turnover battle, the team that wins the turnover battle goes on to win the game 70% of the time.
Yeah, you sound like an NBC broadcast.
Yeah. But now let me read you the freaking turnover differentials under the Shanahan era. 2017, -3 on the season. 2018, minus 25.
Yep.
2019, plus 4. So that's when they went to the Super Bowl, plus 4. Minus 11 in 2020, minus 4 last year, and they went to the NFC Championship. I think that they are towards the top of the league in turnover differential this year. Another thing that's really separated Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan is injury luck. The Niners, I mean, it's incredible that we basically got through training camp and, okay, Mitchell with a hammy. Okay, Ward's going to be out for 4.
Half of it, they lost their starting free safety, who's like the linchpin of the defense, and everybody else had a hamstring issue. I'm not sure that they got through it all fair.
Okay, but compared to what, I mean, it's like, okay, we bring it back, boom, ACL, blah, 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 boom, ACL. I think, okay, listen to this. Okay, this is Shanahan versus McVay in injury luck. Okay, McVay, he ranked 5th, 2nd, 10th, 4th, and 1st in best injury luck. Last year was 1st. Shanahan, same years, 3rd worst, 1st worst, 6th worst, 4th worst, and 10th worst. I think that the Niners stay healthy. I think that they get a lot more turnovers, and I think that it offsets the Trey Lance. Also, the fact that the freaking Niners, every time they're good, it seems like the Seahawks are awesome and the Rams are awesome. The NFC is wide open for once. Brady, I don't know what the heck's going on with Brady. I honestly, if you gave me a ticket,
Masked Singer.
Yeah, if you gave me a ticket like at 10-1 that Brady retires at some point throughout the season, I'd take a flyer on it. So that's just where I'm at with Brady. So it's like you got an old Rodgers, an old Brady, and after that, it's wide open. So
I'm with you.
He better not retire. He's quarterbacking the Krugerrand fantasy team, and Krugerrands were money. All right, okay. Let me finish with 2 last ones. Give me your bold prediction league wide. Do you have one, or do you want me to go first and you guys can think about it?
I got one for you.
Okay.
You know how we really like talking some smack about Zeke Elliott? I think he's going to have a monster year. I think Zeke Elliott's going to touch the ball like 300 times and just win everybody their fantasy league and go, and I guess maybe the Cowboys would be the only team that would re-sign him when he gets cut at the end of the year because his contract's about to balloon. But I think that Zeke Elliott's about to have himself a year. And
that's one of the boldest predictions I've ever heard.
I know. I know. Listen,
oh my God.
Nobody on the planet has thrown more slander Zeke Elliott's way than your boy Dieter Kurtenbach. I'm telling you, it's all coming back on me this year. I'm going to have to eat it every single day. I am hedging this bet immediately. I think he has a monster year. Think about what the Dallas Cowboys offense, which they beat up on some weaklings last year in the NFC East. There's no question about that. And they'll get the same sort of schedule, though I do like the Eagles to win that division this year. They want to run the ball first. They lost a bunch of pass catching weapons. They don't have good pass protection. They're going to hand it off a lot. And Tony Pollard is better in concept than he is in reality. Shows up, will have a couple good weeks for you in fantasy, and then disappears off the face of the earth. Jerry Jones loves Zeke Elliott like a son. He is going to let him run, and not the kind of son that you would actually want to protect from the sport of football. The kind of son that's about to go out there and maintain the glory of the Jones family name kind of son. And I just think that Zeke Elliott's going to get it early and often. He's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I don't like really the Cowboys that much this year, but from a fantasy perspective, oh boy, I'm getting all the Zeke Elliott I can get my hands on.
Okay, that's interesting. I totally disagree with that one, and I love you, Dieter. I think you're really smart. I love everything about you, brother. But I just don't see that.
I think Dieter, go as bold as possible.
I think Zeke is seen his best days, and I just think that he doesn't get through the hole as fast. Their O-line is not what it used to be. Pollard is much better receiver. Zeke is not much of a receiver. I love Zeke as a player, but I think his best football has come and gone.
Said his average was going to be any good. I'm just saying he's going to.
You're saying he's going to have a bust out year. I do think there's going to be a Texas back that has a bust out year, but I'm going Dameon Pierce out of the Texans, who played at Florida. One of my favorite articles to read every year is in The Athletic. It's Bruce Feldman's Freaks List, and right in that Freaks List last year was Dameon Pierce when he was at Florida. He didn't get a lot of run at Florida. It's amazing how much talent there is in the SEC in some of these schools. Some of these guys just don't get any run. He didn't get any run, but man, the guy can squat the entire gym. He could probably take a Toyota Corolla and put it on his back and do leg presses. I mean, the guy's incredible. His leg strength is incredible, and you can see it. When he hits the hole, he just moves the pile. So I say Dameon Pierce is going to have the bust out year. I think he outrushes Zeke in Texas there with the Texans as opposed to the Cowboys.
1-2 here, Larry. I like this. We're
I like
keep
that
our
one.
eyes on
So
Texas.
the other one I'm going with, and this one's bold.
Okay.
The Rams are going to miss the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. I saw a stat last week. The big four of the Rams last year of Donald, Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, and Stafford missed a combined one game last year. That is not going to happen again. Last year, they were top heavy and they got away with it and won the bowl. This year, they're even more top heavy because of the way they've used their cap, and they're not getting away with it. Not only are they not getting away with it, they're going to lose a couple key guys. The backups coming in are going to be a dramatic drop off. I expect John Wofford to start more than 2 or 3 games this year. I think the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champion Rams, are going to miss the playoffs altogether. Give me your bold prediction. You got a bold prediction, anybody?
Oh, I've got some holstered. I've got some
right.
holstered.
All right, fire away.
So obviously a few of these are a little more, not as much I'm expecting, but I've put a little money on it because I think that it's actually possible. Okay. Eagles to have the best record in the NFC.
Love it.
Yeah, they stacked everywhere. If Hurts gets injured, they still have Minshew. Schedule super easy. Yeah. Okay. Second thing, Ravens best record in the AFC. They're the first to worst team this year, and it's kind of a caveat. They're not really first to worst, but I think Lamar has a monster year, and he had a bad year last year. He really had a bad year. So I have Ravens best record in the AFC. DeAndre Swift, number 1 fantasy running back this year. Kirk Cousins, I already bet this one. Kirk Cousins to lead the league in passing yards. And then my final one is a little bit of a, I'm in my Warriors feel still after this year. I think that Patty Mahomes is like, oh, everyone's talking about Denver. Oh, they're starting to talk about the Raiders. Oh, the Chargers. Everyone has the Chargers penciled in. Herbert for MVP. Oh, they don't think I can do it without Tyreek Hill. All of a sudden, he has a better offensive line. Patrick Mahomes with time, all those new weapons, Juju, Sky Moore. I think Patty Mahomes has a Curry-like year where he was like kind of slept on. I think he's a monster. I think they still, blow over whatever their total is, 10.5. I think they win that division, and I think they're just as solid as they, have been in the past.
I'm really concerned about Kansas City's defense. Obviously, they're well coordinated. The talent on that side of the ball concerns me, but a guy that I'm really in on with Kansas City this year is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know that it hasn't worked out according to plan, but he's had some weird injuries, and Kansas City's going to have to get back to a little bit more ground and pound without having Tyreek Hill there. They can't just go over the top every single play. And by the way, it got him in trouble last year in the AFC Championship game, just kind of trying to play for the big play at all times, going video game Madden style. They're going to have to possess the ball a little bit more. They're going to have to be more of a typical Andy Reid offense, right? The kind of offense that we saw when he first got to Kansas City, the kind of offense that we saw when he was in Philadelphia. Andy Reid's, he loves offensive linemen. That's his bread and butter. That's, we talk about him as a quarterback whisperer. It starts up front with Andy Reid. I know he can get down with the Hogs. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we were talking about a guy, Josh Pacheco, a 7th round pick out of Rutgers. Everyone's talking him up. Give me the guy who's the incumbent, and give me the guy who I think is still like 22 years old, maybe 23. He's got a lot of good football left in him. Give me the guy that's got that explosive burst that we're talking about, a 3-down back that was overdrafted in everybody's fantasy league last year. And now we're just sort of counteracting that because we got burnt. Give me Clyde Edwards-Helaire this season. I'm all in on him. I'm all in on Zeke. I'm buying low on a lot of dudes out here. And, Larry can try to get the young buck. I'm going with the one that we've seen do it before. Maybe not Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but Zeke Elliott. Clyde Edwards.
You know, it's funny. I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the Kruger Rams.
Good.
He's
Okay.
he's on the fantasy team.
We're aligned.
All right, last one. I do believe I loved Clyde Edwards-Helaire at LSU,
He was awesome.
and it just hasn't really happened. I know he got overdrafted in some of the free agent or some of the fantasy drafts that first year. Like some people had him like going in the top 5.
Yeah.
And then this year everybody kind of forgot about him. I do think he bust out this year and has a real breakout year. All right, let's finish up on the Niners Bears one more time. Let's talk quickly about the matchup. I like the Niners to win this thing like 35-10. I think it's going to be all Niners. I think the Niner defense is going to have some problems stopping the run, but not in this game. In this game, I think they're going to come out. I think the Bears offensive line has got a lot of problems. The 49er defensive line has got tons of talent. They come at you in waves. I really believe that the Bears, I think Fields is going to have a real nice year this year, but the Niners, the Bears just don't match up. The Niners have a lot of talent. They play well early in the year for Kyle Shanahan. They play well on the road. Look at those numbers. 49ers go out on the road under Shanahan. They get things done. So I like the Niners 33-10 in a game that's probably not even as close as that score says. 35-10, I should say. 35-10 49ers. And I think the big mismatch is Bosa up front on that offensive line. Riley Rife, Braxton Jones is a real good talent at left tackle, but he's a rookie making his first start. I just think the Niners have so much talent on the edges with Ebukam and Drake Jackson and obviously Bosa and others leading the way. And I think they're going to stunt. They can do all kinds of stunting and game playing up front. They're going to move their guys. They can have that Bear offensive line. Heads are going to be spinning, and it's going to be jailbreak on Justin Fields. He'll make a few plays. 35-10 49ers take week 1. Give me your thought on the matchup. Is there a matchup that you're looking for, or what's your score prediction in this one?
I just don't have a lot of faith that it's going to click early, right? Like I totally get where you're coming from with the big old score line. You just look at the talent, you just look at the systems, and you say, this is going to be a cakewalk. This is going to be easy. But if it was only that easy, they're integrating a lot of new offensive stuff, and they're doing it under the shadow of this 17-day gap between the final preseason game and the first regular season game. The 49ers offenses, they're not 49ers aren't keen to let people know that they're really working on a lot of pitches and they're really working on a lot of motions, and that they might be tapping into some of the stuff that Jordan Mason was doing when Paul Johnson was his head coach at Georgia Tech. I just don't know if that clicks right away. I don't know if they get into an offensive rhythm right away. And I think that they're going to move the ball, because I think it's almost impossible not to move the ball against this Bears defense. But I think that they're going to take a couple of drives that should be touchdowns and turn them into field goals and just take the Robbie Gould points, because we know Kyle will be conservative in that way. I don't think they put a big number on the board. I think they're at 23 points when this game is all said and done. Now, the good news is, as you noted, the 49ers defense should have a pretty good day. I'm worried about Jimmy Ward. I believe that safeties are destiny in the NFL in this modern era. But the talent's there. Maybe Tavarius Moore can get it done. Maybe George Odom can get it done there. It's not an incredibly high bar to leap over in terms of getting it done at free safety. Hufanga's going to have a lot on him. But this Niners defense should be able to put enough pressure on Fields and cover up the passing game that when they get burned in the run game, it's not going to burn them overall. I think that it's a late score for Chicago to get it to mess up the cover for a lot of people. I got 23-17 San Francisco in a game that's not as close as the scoreline indicates, but definitely not as much of a blowout as Larry thinks it's going to be.
Rye, how do you see it? How do you see week 1 going at Soldier?
I kind of side a little bit more with Dieter. I think it's going to be a mixed bag. For example, I think Shanny's going to draw up something, maybe you get your first Danny Gray touchdown, Larry. I think he's going to draw up something the way, remember in that preseason game when he hit Debo, and he's going to have something to try and make him settle in, feel comfortable. He's going to hit some long bomb for a touchdown, but then there's going to be a lot of inconsistency. And at the end of the day, he's going to finish with a good stat line, and it's only going to lead to more fodder of people arguing about whether or not he played well or not. So that would be my prediction. The Niners are going to take care of business, but it's going to be something closer to what Dieter said.
Do they cover? They cover that 7? That's a no. If it's not an immediate yes, it's a no.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, win by 7's probably about right. I mean, like, I would feel I'll just say this. I've already got the Niners in a bunch of teases, so I'm very confident they're going to win the game. Not so sure. I think that the backdoor Justin Fields to Cole Kmet is very much in play.
All right, let's hit the super chats here, and then we'll call it a live stream. 49er George 365 donates $4.99. He says, "Yes, sir, let's go. However, I never condone OG Top Gun blasphemy. Love you, Larry K." I said on the radio on 95.7 The Game with Willard on Friday that the original Top Gun, which I watched, several weeks ago before I took my kids to go see the second Top Gun, was a total chick flick, and it was kind of slow. And wow. I didn't, I don't know. This just in. I don't really give a damn about Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise and their byplay. And it was just a little bit too much love affair. And also it was just slow. Like when I went back and watched it, yeah, there were some cool scenes, but we needed so little to be entertained back then. There were, you've got that love and feeling and all those scenes. There was just an awful lot of dialogue and it was kind of a chick flick. It was kind of a a lot of feelings and a lot of dialogue, and this, I didn't love it. And 49er George 365 is basically not having it.
It's just a love story between two men trying to fly planes, Larry. I'm not sure why you couldn't grasp that. I mean, I know it's a little bit ahead of its time, but come on now.
Gammon Brown says, here's $2. 49ers will lead the league in 3 tight end sets this year. What do you guys think of that?
I don't like that pick. And listen, only because I've been burned so many times before thinking this would finally be the year where Kyle Shanahan goes to a 22 personnel and just finally leans in. Jordan Reed was just sitting out there week after week. It could have happened. And then I guess he got injured. I don't trust Ross Dwelly. I don't think the 49ers do either. Tyler Kroft, I was a little bit surprised he made the team. I get why he made the team. Like, it wasn't like a stunner, but I don't really know what they're doing with him there. And Charlie Warner's fine. Tight end is not a strong position on this team, in my opinion. Like, I really don't feel
I agree.
I don't feel good about tight end. I don't feel good about George Kittle this year. I think George Kittle's best football might be behind him. I'd be interested to find out if I'm wrong. That'd be really fun to watch. But
that might have been your bold prediction right there.
I'm just not feeling good about Kittle.
MVP. But that's partially why I picked Kittle as MVP, is because I don't know. I feel like doesn't it seem like Kyle has flirted with a lot of these tight ends to get a second tight end in here? I feel like he was flirting with Hooper.
Whenever he gets in a second tight end, let me know. He's got a lot of 3s and 4s, but no number 2.
I know.
That's how I see it too. I see Kittle as a great 1, but Warner, Dwelly.
By the way, do you watch that Notre Dame Ohio State? That kid, their tight end is he
for Notre Dame?
Yeah, is he just Gronk? Like, what?
Yeah, he is. Yes,
that's what they do at Notre Dame, though. They just
running like
You're talking about Michael Mayer.
Yeah, they're running like a high school offense, and it's like,
awesome.
Just get the ball to him. Literally,
the guy is tremendous.
Yeah.
The guy is tremendous. I mean, he's just absolutely blue chipper. Jaguayo 56 donates $2. He was talking about bust out players, or we were talking about bust out players. He says Elijah Mitchell on offense and Armstead on defense. Can't argue with those, Jaguayo. Those are solid picks for sure. You could argue both those guys have already busted out, but I hear you. Glass half full guy donates $1.99. Any chance Womack for dark horse defensive rookie of the year? What do you guys think of Sammy Womack? I thought that was interesting. One of the questions that came up this week during the Lynch Adam Peters presser was, hey, you guys, fell in love with Womack this year. And I thought it was really interesting that Lynch and Peters said, hey, you know what? The road scout who liked this guy was on him last year and loved his traits and loved the long arms. And I thought that was a very interesting answer. They loved several of the traits that Womack showed. Guys, if there's anybody who has hit the ground running looking NFL ready, it's Samuel Womack. the third. He looks like he's going to be able to step in for K'Wan Williams at the nickel corner and maybe be an upgrade as far as pass coverage. I don't think he'll be an upgrade against the run because K'Wan was great against the run.
That's right.
But this kid looks like K'Wan was susceptible to the deep ball. Womack is not.
K1 was susceptible to a lot of balls.
Yeah.
I've had that out more times than needs to be said. The Womack thing is fascinating to me because just like Zakelj, right? Sammy Womack looked like the first guy who was going to be cut at the beginning of training camp. And again, just a dude who just kept getting better. And here's the weirdest part about Womack. You never really saw it on the practice field. I mean, it was there in spurts, but it never you never wrote down Sammy Womack's name, good or bad, which I guess is a good thing. And then in the games, my God, he was everywhere. You couldn't take your eyes off of him. I love that pick. I don't even know how dark horse it is. It's almost like we're taking him for granted at this point as a player. So I'd almost want to pull it back a little bit and say, hey, he did it in the preseason. That's the preseason. Let's see what he can do. Well, I guess it's the Bears and the Seahawks, so maybe we should continue to ride this horse. But I love Sammy Womack as a dark horse because if he hits, there's one weakness left. And it's free safety, and Jimmy Ward's coming back. Who might underratedly be one of the most. I mean, he might be one of the best players in the league. Jimmy Ward's really, really good. Knees donates $2. He says, bold prediction: we trade Jimmy G mid-season. What do you guys think of that?
I just don't think it would happen just because he's worth so much to the Niners in the case of any Trey injury. And then it's like, if we keep him for the rest of the year, we get a compensatory third. So they would have to really blow us out of the water.
I'd like at least a second, right?
It'd have to be a second or a first. It's never going to get a first. The second is complete. I mean, someone would have to get really desperate really fast, which I suppose could happen. But the Niners have been expecting that to happen. But we say things like, oh, well, that would be pretty bold to trade Jimmy because, Trey is going to be running a lot and could be injury prone. But as Larry has already told us, they have Brock Purdy. I don't understand why they even need a Jimmy Garoppolo at this point.
Exactly. Don't sleep on Purdy. All right, here we go. Jamal Armstrong donates $4.99. Last chat here, super chat. He says, I've got the 49ers winning week 1 by 10, but Justin Fields rushing for at least 80 yards out of necessity with our D-line constantly keeping him under pressure. Thoughts? I've seen too much speed from the Niner linebackers this summer to think that Justin Fields could run for 80 yards.
That is exactly right. This is where linebackers come into play. They don't even need to be spying. I mean, the 49ers are going to run a lot of base. I mean, not a lot of base sets, but a lot of base defense. Just here's the basic cover 2. Here's the basic cover 4. Here's the basic cover 3. They don't need to get fancy with it. They have that kind of talent. And Fred Warner, he'll just drop off from the hook and go over and kill a guy. I mean, he's unbelievable. I love Azeez Al-Shaair. Dre Greenlaw is an outstanding player. They have 3 linebackers that are legitimate Pro Bowl caliber, and I think 2 of them are all pro caliber. And I really do think the world of Azeez Al-Shaair, probably more so than anybody else except for the Al-Shaair family. But that is a really special linebacker group. I kind of like the depth there too. I liked it a lot better last year, but they've traded away they know what they're doing at linebacker. DeMeco Ryans, get this, might know how to identify a linebacker or 2. I just don't see it. And by the way, it should really be noted, we saw this happen a bunch in the NFC playoffs last year. The 49ers secondary tackles really, really well. Now, K'Wan Williams is a great guy against the run, as Larry just pointed out. Not so great against the pass. We'll see what Sammy Womack has in that regard. But Ward is a really good tackler, as I saw. I mean, to whatever degree you can see it in training camp. Mosley's a great tackler. Honestly, I thought he'd be playing on the inside this year. He's such a good tackler. Hufanga's a good tackler. He couldn't be out there if he wasn't a good tackler because the other traits are somewhat lacking, but he can bring the thump. And when Jimmy Ward is in the game, I think that he can be a really good tackler as well, and he covers a tremendous amount of field. This is a very physical, very sound defense. He's not getting 80. If he gets 80, the 49ers lose. I think that's a full stop statement. I just don't see it, though I do like the first part of that, which is a lot of pressure from the 49ers defensive line. I just think that pressure gets home far more often than not.
Last one. Who is going to be matched up in Glendale in the Super Bowl? I'm going 49ers Bills.
Okay.
Who do you got?
Niners, Ravens.
Buccaneers Colts.
Ooh.
Look at you.
That's
Dieter's that guy that he goes to the 5-star restaurant, Rye, and he says, you know what? I know you don't have it on the menu, but I'd like to order this. He orders off the menu and then gets it. You know what I mean? He's that kind of a guy.
I would like your finest chicken fingers, please.
Yeah, exactly. That might be the final question. How many days before game day do the 49ers press box food preparers start to make the chicken fingers that we get at halftime? How many days?
370.
What happened first?
Year's.
They started cooking the chicken fingers for week 2,
Yeah.
or minicamp. What happened first?
They got all of those chicken fingers in the trade for Trey Lance, so they've just been cooking them since April of 2021. It's really it's good though, because if you need a doorstop, they got you covered.
I gotta say though, so that was my first time ever being, in the media area. The tacos, I was like, oh, can't go wrong with some tacos. It's probably pretty good. And I'm like, oh, ooh, they got a little cheese. Oh, they're putting a little queso on top.
Oh.
Take a bite. Parmesan cheese. I've never tasted such a thing. It was like a street taco covered in Parmesan cheese. It was just did not go down well.
It was an offensive taco. I had that same taco. It was an offensive taco.
I knew better.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff.
I saw Larry at the taco stand, and I'm like, do I tell him? And I said, no, he's a big boy. He'll figure it out.
I always, just as a little secret, I'm going to tell you guys, and don't share this with anybody. Keep it quiet. I always take an extra chicken finger just in case I get attacked on the way to my car, and I can hurl it at the guy. And I just know that it's such a blunt object that it would save me. So one extra chicken finger just to make sure I get to my car.
If you can lock yourself out, you can break the window with it. It's beautiful.
Exactly. It's a multi-purpose chicken finger. All right, Dieter, you're the best, bro. And this is why we have Dieter on, because Dieter is phenomenal. He's good on the radio. He's good in print. He's just really good. And he's a great follow on Twitter, @Dieter. Follow this guy. Read this guy's stuff. Listen to him on the radio. He breaks it down. Dieter, you're the man. You will be back, and you got a final word on your way out the door.
Yeah, I do, but it's going to break up a little bit because of the headphones such. Thanks for having me so much, guys. Real pleasure to get to talk to you both, and we'll see what happens, man. Write down all of these predictions and then let me know how much of an idiot I am in a couple of days, weeks, and months.
Good stuff. Ryan, you got a final thought before we end the live stream?
Dieter, never really conversed with you for this long, and man, you're an awesome guy. Love talking ball with you. And then also, I have to say, Emiliano, I can't tell if this is a joke. Tony Scott was known for his rom-coms. The guy who did what was that movie with Hackman and Denzel on the submarine? And he makes the most manly movies of all time, Man on Fire and Unstoppable. So that was a funny comment.
That's Ryan. That's Dieter. I'm Larry. We're out. Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah, we ain't never fall back.